His performance, considering all the magic that team has had throughout the entire postseason and down the stretch of the regular season, I mean, obviously it was a down moment for Joe Burrow stat wise. I mean, his yardage number is really buoyed by the fact of that 75-yard bomb he threw to T Higgins. If he didn't have that, I think he would have been sitting at like 160 yards or something like that. But on in totality, looking at the offensive line, they did the best they could, but he didn't have a whole lot of time. Um, I'm not too worried about Joe Burrow. I think he's going to be back to another Super Bowl. I think this is just the beginning for Joe Burrow. He's going to be like, top three, top five quarterback in the AFC, like we were saying over the last couple of weeks of this pod. I'm not worried about Joe Burrow. Even after he hurt his knee, and I thought we saw another person tear an ACL, and we just lost Joe Burrow for the upcoming season. But that kid, tough as nails. I keep saying it, Jay. It's got to be the water in Athens, Ohio, because that dude is tough as nails, boy. But I think the future's bright. In the draft, I would use all of my picks on building an offensive line and going after maybe Teron Armstead, the free agent offensive lineman from the New Orleans Saints, and getting him up to Cincinnati and see if he likes Skyline Chili.
Who didn't like Skyline Chili? I had some in honor of Joe Burrow today.
Nice, nice. I gotta go out there and get that shit.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've gone on for the 4 or 5 podcasts now about how much we love Joe Burrow. We're not gonna rehash all of it. Yeah, he had obviously a down game in his bias standards, but it's not all his fault. I mean, he had no help from his coaching staff or his offensive line. But the one thing about the kid is, man, he got sacked 7 times, but he doesn't blink. I think I've never seen this where I think I saw this pre-2008 Brady injury where no matter how many times you hit him, he was still going to be a statue in the pocket. And obviously after his ACL injury, he was a little bit more jittery. But this kid, even after his ACL injury from last year, no matter how hard you hit him, he's not going to phase him. He just gets up and keeps slinging. And I think it goes back to his upbringing. He used to play cornerback back in high school, I believe. And, he seeked out contact. He's a very physical player. He's even said on many occasions that he doesn't feel like he's in the game until he gets hit a couple times. And when's the last time a quarterback has said that? So we're not worried about Joe Burrow. He's going to be back. Hopefully it's not a Dan Marino situation. And I don't think he will be. But we did this for the Rams, but let's do a quick little future outlook for the Bengals as well. And you started the conversation with obviously spending a lot of draft capital on the offensive line. But I think for me, man, when you look at team building this offseason for the Bengals, You've got to obviously build the offensive line. That's number one. But you've got to have like a meeting of the minds between Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow and kind of work on that philosophy of, well, listen, if we are getting hammered and we can't protect you, we've got to get it. We've got to get around that somehow, right? There's gonna be games, I get it, where Aaron Donald and Von Miller are just gonna wreak havoc on your offensive line and you're not gonna have an answer. At that point, you've got to have a couple of fastballs, whether it's the running game or the screen game or the quick slant game, whatever it is that you got to morph your offense from a deep play, big play offense to a more, middle of the field, quick slants, 5 yards, Mac Jones type of offense where you're throwing at the line of scrimmage. This is the only time I'm going to use that as a positive, This is like complete opposite where you've got to kind of rein him in a little bit. But I think that's going to be key more than anything is to go out there and try to have a evolution of the offense.
For sure, because if they did a couple of screenplays, and granted, I don't know if maybe the lack of screens was because Samaje Perine, who's normally like the change of pace back and the pass catching back out the backfield, I don't know if maybe he missed a few walkthroughs this week, but he just didn't seem like himself. He didn't seem like he was on the same page with Joe Burrow and the offensive play scheming, and it was kind of like that with the Kansas City game. Besides, he bailed himself out by getting that touchdown in the comeback against the Kansas City Chiefs 2 weeks ago. But in the Super Bowl, he kind of had some head scratching moments and left Joe Burrow a little bit hanging out to dry. But they're definitely going to they'll be back in the mix for the Super Bowl. I think that they're going to win the AFC North. I think they're the best team in the AFC North, and that's saying something with Baltimore still there. But who knows what's going to go on with that defense with Wink Martindale leaving, and Lamar is going to be in the middle of the contract extension talks in the offseason, and we all know what Lamar is and what he isn't. But I definitely think they're going to be back in contention. Top
Well,
five team, in my opinion. Definitely going to win the AFC North.
well, let me ask you this because obviously the AFC is just so loaded. And I think for me personally, I think the top dogs in the AFC are still the Chiefs and the Bills. And I've got
Mm-hmm.
a sneaky suspicion of the Bills next year. Like, I am not advising you to put any money on the Puma, but I'm going to really consider putting money down on the Bills because I feel like they're pissed off. They want to get what's theirs. But regardless, I feel like even though the Bengals came off of a Super Bowl appearance, I think it's still a Chiefs versus Bills kind of league in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
Am I overstating that? Should I be thinking differently? Because after that, you're looking at obviously the Bengals. You're looking at the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to be good next year. I think once they're healthy, Puma at some point in the middle of the season this year, even with all their issues, they were still like number one in the AFC. Do you remember that? Like around week 8
Yep.
ish, they were still like performing. So I think they'll be back, and I'm really fascinated to see what happens in the AFC West. Obviously, if Aaron Rodgers lands in Denver, then that they become somebody in the mix. I'm a big fan of Justin Herbert, and I think hopefully if Brandon Staley doesn't play Madden on the football field, maybe they can win some more games. But I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing and hearing out of Oakland. And I'm sorry, Las Vegas. And maybe this is my sister rubbing off on me here, right? But like I'm liking that fact that Josh McDaniels have fully embraced their car. They're talking about ideas about how they're going to change the offense. They're thinking about offering him an extension. And obviously, Josh McDaniels brought a bunch of people over from New England when it comes to the offensive staff. So, a dark horse candidate out of the AFC. Well, keep an eye out for the Raiders. But the bigger point being,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of teams in the AFC. I haven't even talked about the Patriots yet, who I have real little respect for. But obviously, they're going to be a tough out. So, like, there's a lot of teams there to get back in the Super Bowl. And my question to you is, how hard is it going to be for those guys to come back next year? Because obviously, the Rams have an easier path, right?
Oh yeah, the Rams have an easier path. I mean, the Cardinals are kind of in disarray. Who knows what's going to happen with Russell Wilson, and especially if Rodgers moves from the NFC to the AFC, well, that just changes the whole landscape there too. But AFC wise, it is like you said, the deepest division in the NFL. I still, like I just said, I got the Bengals winning the AFC North. Yeah, there's always a potential for the Super Bowl hangover, but it is gonna the playoffs are gonna either go through Arrowhead or it's gonna go through Orchard Park and Buffalo. I'm definitely with you there. Those two teams are the chalk. I call it bias, call it whatever. But I lean towards Buffalo. They kept mostly everything intact. Yeah, Brian Daboll left to be the head coach of the Giants, but Ken Dorsey, who was the quarterbacks coach, who a lot of people have a lot of respect for Dorsey in that building, is now going to be the offensive coordinator. No, I think that landscape is definitely going to be a tough sledding. I think it's going to go through Buffalo and hell, Jay, even the Dolphins. I mean, like they hired Mike McDaniel. Who knows if they're going to use Waddle like a Debo Samuel type of role. Good Lord, that's going to be a
Ooh,
fun
good
team to
point.
watch.
Good point. Didn't think
Like
about that. Wow.
that's definitely going to be a fun team to watch and could potentially make some noise in the AFC as well too. Like the AFC is so deep that
Dude, we haven't
it's
talked about the
crazy.
Titans yet. The Titans were the number
Nope,
one seed this year.
nope. It's crazy. It's crazy.